Hi friends, my name's Maddie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video, I'm going to be going over all the books I read in the month of June. I believe I ended up reading about 8 books. Yeah, so I ended up reading 8 books. I DNF'd one. I didn't read a whole lot during the month of June. I was traveling for like 2 weeks and I only picked up a book like at the airport or when I was on a plane. So not a whole lot of reading was done this month and I'm okay with that. I saw it coming, so I really did not read a whole lot of great books this month. God damn. I got one 5-star read. The rest of them are like 3 stars or DNFs. It was a rough month. One of the first books I read in the month of June was Taming Seraphine. So this is about Seraphine, who has been trapped in this basement for like the last 3.5 years of her life, and she is a trained assassin by like her father figure, but it's like not really her father. She is then taken in by Leroy after he's trying to take down the men who are working alongside with her father figure, the person in charge of her. After Leroy rescues her, he is noticing she has a lot of like killer instincts. So I thought this was an incredible hitman mafia romance. I really thought the character dynamics were super interesting because Leroy recognizes that Seraphine has a lot of trauma, a lot of issues, and she only trusts Leroy, but he's working really hard not to overstep those boundaries and kind of take advantage of her in ways that like other people would. So I thought that was really interesting and I thought really like well thought out. And it reminds me a little bit of Butcher and Blackbird, so if you like that book, I think you should pick this one up for sure. And I really am excited to keep reading the rest of the series. I think the writing was really fun as well. With that being said, this is obviously a darker romance, so I highly recommend checking the triggers before you pick this one up. One of the next books I picked up was a reread for me, and that was Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. So this is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series, and this is an absolutely just fantastic read, and it is worth every single bit of hype that it gets. So this is about Shannon, who comes from like an abusive household. She was very bullied in school, and she is transferred to Tommen, where Johnny basically like slams into her on like a rugby pitch, and their romance kind of goes from there. It is so heavy, and I forget how much like angst is in this book because it's just so incredible. And just when you think like what else could go wrong, everything else continues to go wrong, and it's really funny. There's a couple of like really great strong side characters in this book, and I think it just makes it like the perfect well-rounded book. So the next book I ended up DNFing was Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I have tried to like Elsie Silver's books. I think the only book I liked from her was Reckless, which I think is the second one in the Chestnut Springs series. Other than that, on average, they're about 3 stars for me. I got about halfway through this book, I believe, and I just thought, one, Ford was really boring. I didn't care for his character at all. Nothing about him screamed like billionaire because he's supposed to be a billionaire. I felt like him having a kid was just like this random side plot. It was just so like, just did not mesh well together. And then additionally, the 2 characters were pining after each other, but they hadn't seen each other in 10 years, and it felt like there was 0 chemistry, and I just really did not enjoy it, so I stopped reading it, and I don't think I will be picking up another Elsie Silver book. So the next book I picked up was Painted Scars by Neva Altsha. Whoops. So this is about Nina and Roman. Roman is the head of the Russian Bratva, and she is married off to him. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. I thought this one was just like okay. Nothing really stuck out to me about this book. I don't think I'll be continuing this series just because I wasn't like super drawn to it. I've definitely read better mafia romances. So the next book I picked up was Black Knight by Rena Kent, and I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars as well. So this is about Kimberly and Xander, and they were best friends growing up, and then something happens and they're like now kind of like sworn enemies. There was a plot in this book I did not care for. I wasn't into it, sorry. I did like Xander's character and Kimberly's character. Kimberly has a lot going on in her life, especially family-wise. So I thought just her kind of reading her perspective was really interesting and I thought very captivating, but I overall just did not care for this one, and this is like the first Rina Kent book that I'm like, yeah, not a fan. And you know what, I'm okay with that. I'll keep reading this series because I do really enjoy her other books. I just don't think this as a standalone was my favorite. The next book I picked up was Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. I felt like this book was very dry, and I think the principle was interesting. So it's about Chicago during the World Fair during like the 1880s into like the 1890s, up until the fair, and about H.H. Holmes, who is like this infamous serial killer that's running rampant across Chicago during this time frame. And I felt like there were too many details, but not enough details, if that makes sense in any freaking way. Like, I felt like there was so many intricate details, but they weren't interesting enough to like retain. Like, I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it, even though it was interesting. I thought the best part of this book was definitely the end and how the World Fair impacted like the world pretty much. Like, one of the guys who designed some of the buildings in the World Fair ended up to be like Walt Disney's great-grandfather, or Walt Disney's grandfather. And there were a couple of other really interesting things that I thought were good, but I think as a whole it was just very dense and just not captivating enough to like really pull me in. It took me quite a while to get through this book. The next book I ended up picking up was Brutes by Diz Tate, and I ended up giving that one 3 out of 5 stars as well. The premise of this book is following a group of 13-year-old girls, and one of them goes missing, and I don't know what happened in this book. Yeah, basically the entire book I had absolutely no idea what was happening. It was just all vibes, no plot, but I didn't like the vibes because there was no plot. So I think this book was not for me. The next book I read was Along for the Ride. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars as well. So this is about Leanna, who runs away from an abusive boyfriend, and she is picked up by these 2 brothers, and they're in like a gang. They pick her up and they go on this whole revenge tour after she gets with both of the brothers. And while there were certain aspects of this book I can appreciate, one of the things I didn't really like is that one of the brothers didn't want to like share. She wanted to be boyfriends with both of them. One brother was okay with it, one was like not okay with it, but he ended up becoming okay with it, but didn't feel like he was okay with it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the whole plot of this book. So the next book I picked up was That Summer Feeling, and I ended up giving that one 4 out of 5 stars. I thought this one was actually really good. This is about Garland, who is recently divorced, and her sister go to a summer sleepaway camp. On the promise of like never falling in love again, never getting to get married again. She ends up really liking her very competitive ex-park ranger roommate Stevie, who's very knowledgeable, and she's just like super cool and like super chill, and a bunch of her CB siblings are also there, so it just makes for a very entertaining little cast of characters. Overall, I thought that Garland was she was a very strong female main character, and I liked how she navigated this new relationship after her previous one failed. But it was very summery and like just everything you kind of dream of when you think of like summer camp. I don't know, it was really fun. And I had a good one reading this one on multiple plane rides. But I thought this book overall was just really sweet and endearing, and I would absolutely check out other books by this author. Alright, and that's it for all the books I read in the month of June. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to let me know what books you read in the month of June, what your favorite was, and maybe I'll add them to my TBR. I hope you have a fantastic day. Goodbye!